Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of ARWP, the All Real Wrestling Podcast. I am your host, Eric Novak, and today we have a special guest. He was formerly known as Son of Havok on Lucha Underground. He is the man of Wrestling is Forever. He is Matt Cross. Alright, let's get into these questions. The first question I need to know is, when did you have your first match and where?
That's a little trickier of a question for me because I started doing backyard wrestling in like 98 or 99. We got booked on some shows based off the notoriety of our backyard stuff. So independent shows, and we were completely untrained and whatever. So not the typical way that people enter the business. And then while we were doing these independent shows untrained, we were approached by a guy named JT Lightning, who eventually trained us, asking if we would want to pursue wrestling. So we said yes. But basically, we were training as we were doing shows. So I don't have like a period where it was like a lead up to a first show, get really nervous, here it is, oh my God. I was already doing shows before I was ready, before I should have. So it's really like a muddy gray area of like, I'm a backyard wrestler doing indie shows, I'm training, so I don't know when I was ready. Roughly August of 2001, I guess I had half of an idea of what I was doing-ish.
All right. So let me ask a more better question, I guess. What was the largest card you've ever worked and the smallest card you ever worked?
The smallest was in Switzerland. Tyler Black and I drove. We were in Austria or Germany or something like that. So we drove through the night with some guy for hours and hours. And there was somewhere between 8 and 13 people. So we're so excited to be at that point. I'd never wrestled in Switzerland. It's right now my favorite country in the world. It's breathtaking. It's gorgeous. It's so much fun. It's like a postcard mixed with a painting. It's truly unreal. And so again, we were excited to go there. And then I guess somewhere between 8 and 13 people. So that's the one side of the spectrum. The other side is equally as weird. I did a show in Paris, France. We were the pre-show to a championship rugby match at the Stade de France, where France won the World Cup, and there was 72,000 people. So it was bigger than WrestleMania that year. Wow. They had the ring set up in the back of a truck on a trailer. They drove it onto the field. I was told to do a 3-minute match with TJ Perkins and in front of 72,000 people. The stadium's colors, this team in France in particular, was pink. So everyone was waving pink flags with pink shirts, and just like a real surreal type moment. And again, we were there for just over 24 hours. It's like we flew in, slept a couple hours, wrestled for 3 minutes, stuck around for the game afterwards. It's like maybe briefly went to the Eiffel Tower and then went home that night or something. So it was just completely insane, as wrestling tends to be. But yeah, I like that both of those stories are kind of atypical.
You know what's remarkable? It's the fact that I had TJ Perkins on here just a while back, maybe 2 weeks ago. He's a very nice guy, awesome person. And he literally told me that exact story, that exact match. Yeah, when I asked him, I was like, what was the largest card you ever worked? He's like, right before a game, I was at a stadium. That's really cool. So you versed him at that. Wow, that's really awesome. I did not know that. I have to find that match. If you have to send it to me.
I don't, I wish. I've never seen, I saw a clip of it once, and it was someone shooting, essentially the Titantron, or whatever you want to call it. And even that was weird. Because I remember during the match looking up at that myself, because, the screen was as big as a tennis court. And I'm looking up, what is going? It was just so surreal. And then the crowd was so far away because we're just in the middle of this, pitch. So the first people were essentially a mile away, it seemed like. So there was such a different dynamic, because you would do a move and then hear a reaction. There was a delay, a noticeable delay. So it felt like we were just wrestling for cardboard cutouts of people. It didn't even feel like, it was so surreal. Wow. I remember one of the other, I don't remember her name, but there was a female also on the show. And I remember she was like, hey, what'd you think of my match? And I was like, because we ended up we had a singles match, and then it ended up being like a 6-man tag or something at the end. So she was asking for parts in that. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but if you think I was watching any part of your match, you're crazy. I was on the apron just like, what is going on? Why are there like 72,000 French people? This is like madness. And that's what keeps me in this business, because just like, you get so many weird situations like that, but like they're so memorable and meaningful, and that's what I love about this. So yeah, I mean, there's 13 people or 72,000 and everything in between.
All right. Well, since, we're getting to this portion, I do want to ask, what was the strangest place you ever worked? The strangest arena, the strangest venue?
We wrestled, this is a number of years ago, I'm trying to, like, 6-7 years ago, in Ohio, there was a group doing shows in prisons. So during the week, around noon or something on like a Tuesday, we would go into these prisons and do little shows, and that was pretty. It was awesome. It was so different. It was, I mean, talk about unique. They would put us in with like the general population in a line. We'd have to like come in, the prison and the whole giant clinking metal doors and get in a line where there's tape on the ground where you have to, follow. And we would be in the single file line with the prisoners, like being marched out to the yard to do these shows. But it was, I mean, that's an experience that you can't buy and probably don't want. But I mean, for that second, I was like, I mean, I've never been in prison and I plan to not go. So I'm like, this is what it's like. And like, this is where wrestling has taken me, and just that sort of experience, and the matches were so different because, it's not like there are certain tropes in wrestling. There are certain things that are accepted and not, and there are certain patterns and chants and things that we know. You can't get a bunch of prisoners to like do like a Havok and clap along. These like hardened criminals. They're not going to do that. So like the rules were off. So they were so interesting because we kind of had to go back to ground zero. It felt we were not inventing wrestling, but like we were inventing a new form of wrestling, because it was like, okay, what works here, what doesn't work here. You can't do typical things like, if you're a heel, you can't be like, well, this place sucks. Yeah, no, it's a prison. Like, now you're going to be a face. Like, so all the rules were like out the window. If you cheated behind the ref's back, a typical heel maneuver, that was cheered. Like, they loved it. They're like, oh, look, he's getting one in behind the back of the law. This is amazing. So it was so fun to kind of like figure those things out and see how this works. And we did like 5 or 6 of them. Someday I'd almost like, if I ever write a book, that'll definitely be a chapter, because I could talk just the whole hour or whatever about that, because I don't know if I've met anyone that's done anything quite as strange as that. But yeah, definitely wrestling in prisons I feel like the Johnny Cash of wrestling, so I enjoyed it.
All right, fair enough. All right, I want to talk about a little part of your history. It's Lucha Underground. So personally, when I saw you for the first time ever, that was at All In as Matt Cross. Then months later, I found out that you were son of Havok, and that dawned on me completely. I didn't know, but I watched Lucha Underground since it like originally came out. So I've seen you work for a very long time, and I wanted to know how the call came to you for Lucha Underground.
Out of the blue, completely out of the blue, from one of the head writers, from the head writer, and at the time it was explained to me that they wanted to essentially bring AAA to the United States, but the concern was if you just air genuine AAA, it might be lost on an American audience. So they wanted certain guys, they said why they're calling me, and why they told me at that time they were trying to get John Morrison. So they wanted a couple of Americans that would understand and respect the lucha style and be able to kind of bridge that gap for an American audience. So some of the American style wrestling and some of the lucha style wrestling in like a hybrid that, again, would be more suited for an American audience. So I was excited about it. But the thing about wrestling is, like, at least once a month you get some sort of email or call about something like half insane. So I don't want to say you get jaded at some point, but certainly elements of that. And it's hard to believe much of anything. Because again, like at least once a month I get an email about the next giant big, here it is, like your lives are going to change, you're going to be a millionaire, blah, blah, blah. So if half the things that have been promised came true, like we wouldn't be doing this interview, because I'd be on like my own private island in Hawaii, like surrounded by 4,000 women, like in my 12 mansions, like So you got to sort through so many. You never know what's going on. So I got that call, and I'm like, yeah. And he told me some of the people involved, and guys behind Survivor and The Voice, and all these mega shows. And I was like, I mean, obviously it sounds great, but you're like, well, hopefully, but with a healthy dose of skepticism, like, yeah, we'll see about that. And then I remember it sort of happening. And I even remember that first day being there on set and Eric Van Wagner walking us through the actual physical space. And I was like, okay, this looks awesome. And just that grittiness and that underground feel and the look of everything. And some people think it was some sort of soundstage or something. And it was just genuinely an old, rundown, crappy warehouse. Like when they do the exterior shots when the show starts and they show that building with the billboard on the roof with the logo, that was the building. That was its place into downtown. And so it's just a crappy building in East LA that I think has since been torn down. I know the second building we went to was condemned and torn down. So I think the first one may have been as well. So, I mean, these were just genuine condemned buildings. But it was awesome. And everything they ever told me came true, which might be a first in professional wrestling history. So they were just really cool guys. And yeah, I mean, to get that first call and for it to all sort of fall into place and work linearly was kind of remarkable, especially for wrestling. And so, but yeah, I got the call out of the blue. I don't really know, I guess, my reputation or whatever, but I was happy to get the call, obviously.
Yeah, no, yeah, I think about it all the time. I think nothing will ever compare to Lucha Underground. They were in their own league, and like all good things come to an end. So we'll get to more of that. But for now, tell me, what was your favorite match that you had in Lucha Underground? One that, like, if you could go back to, you'd watch just because of how great it was.
Well, I guess as a quick aside, when I love matches, because it happens so few and far between, I think we're all our own worst critics. So I generally hate all my matches. So if I love one, I almost don't watch it because I don't want to spoil the experience. Like if I think it was good, because if I watch it again, I'm going to, because everything can always be better and you can always do things better. So if I go back and watch something that I love, I'm just going to tear it down. So I can't say these are things that I have gone back to, but I can say that they're things that I have very fond memories of that, like, I don't want to taint that memory. So I think it was the first match of season 3. It was me and Jeff Cobb as Matanza. And it was, the first match of that season. And I think it was my favorite match. I was the first match on season 1, 2, and 3, and maybe 4. So that's my little, like, Undertaker streak that I was proud of because I kicked off every season. And I took that. I don't think it was coincidence. And I know it wasn't for season 3 because I specifically said the growth between season 2 and 3 was pretty significant. So they're like, we want you guys in particular to go out there and set the tone for this whole season. There's so many new eyes on us. We're not just this new rebel group anymore. We're sort of established and people are like, okay, we're going to check this out. What's it all about? So like you guys... they put this, pressure on our backs, I suppose you could say, but I feel like we rose to the occasion, and I've never seen the match, but I just was so proud of it. I had first wrestled Jeff Cobb in Hawaii in like 2010, and I remember thinking like, dude, this guy's awesome, but I'm like, he's quite literally tucked away on an island. Like, it sucks that no one's going to ever know about him. And then, props to him for moving to the mainland and doing what needed to be done to be seen. And now, cat's out of the bag. Everyone knows that he's awesome. But him and I we had some history and we're friends. And we kind of, again, like took that to heart that like, man, we are representing this in this like pivotal moment, or so we thought. And let's kind of, here's our chance. Let's do it. And I remember being so hot in the building that day, like just insanely hot. And we both got back through the curtain and we just laid on this concrete floor because it was kind of cooler. And we both had these stupid masks on, so you can't see, you can't breathe. It's that much hotter. So we're like trying to rip our masks off, just laying on this concrete thing. And people were like putting ice bags on us. So it looked like we had like died in the match or something. And all these other people are coming by and they're like, oh my God, are you okay? Did you guys break your arms and legs? Because we're just like covered in ice bags on the ground. And I was like half embarrassed because I was like, man, this is, and that's not like a typical thing for a backstage scenario. Like that doesn't happen. So to see these two like men or whatever just laying on the ground covered in ice bags is kind of comical. And so I was almost embarrassed about it because I'm like, oh geez, like I shouldn't be this dead. And then someone told me from production that 2 fans that day had passed out from heat exhaustion.
Oh my God! Did they change that later?
Sorry?
Did they ever change that later? Did they ever get like air conditioners and stuff like that?
They had like these units that would kind of pump air in, but it was always less than ideal. Like when we would film in the hotter months, like it would be, I mean, this old crappy building doesn't have central air, so they would do the best they can to work around that. But it was, they would try to schedule the seasons around that so we wouldn't be there in like August or something. But it was brutal. So then I felt better because I went from being completely embarrassed to like, oh, okay, there's people sitting in chairs like just here to watch and they're passing out and we're like giving it our all. So, but we quite literally, I mean, we were on the verge of passing out as well. So, I mean, it's really blood, sweat, and tears in that one.
All right. So let's get at Lucha Underground. So I'm going to ask the final question. How did you feel when you got the call saying that they weren't going to come back, that, they were done? How did you feel knowing that a lot of, your character and I don't want to say like all your fame, but a lot of people who like started watching you was from Lucha Underground. How did you feel that knowing that was coming to an end?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm still waiting for that call.
They didn't give you the call.
There was no, that call doesn't exist. But that's how wrestling typically works. Like people will write me and like, I'm so excited for your match against so-and-so. And I'll be like, what? And then I'll click on a link and see a poster and I'll be like, oh, okay. I mean, I was never asked or I was never whatever. So, I mean, that's just the nature of wrestling. So yeah, no, that call never came. And that was kind of my worst fear, is that it would just sort of fade away unceremoniously. And unfortunately that fear came to be because there was just, I mean, theoretically they could call tomorrow and be like, all right, we're starting next week. Like there was no communication or ending or date or anything like that. It just sort of, so we were just as in the dark as any fan. Like I would say 90% of the times the fans know as much as we do about any part of it. They don't know how the business works, but as far as like those type of things, like they know as much as we do. Like there's not like secret conference calls where it's like, all right, here's the whatever. So then it's like just open to speculation and this and that. So yeah, I have no idea, like quote unquote, what happened or where it went or anything like that. So I even had to sort of half fight to get out of my contract. But even that eventually happened. But even that was like when there was sort of no plans of it coming back. So right now I'm completely in the free and clear, which is nice. But yeah, it was sad. I think you touched on it. I think there will never, I don't hesitate to say never, but like the chances of something like that happening again it would be at least 20 years for it to happen from today.
All right.
At absolute least. And I'd put $1,000 on that right now. Because, like, the thing is, you had guys like Ricochet who had been given a WWE tryout and told no. You had guys like myself who had been given a WWE tryout and told no. You had guys like Jeff Cobb. You had so many people who had been overlooked and kind of like these misfits and we had that chip on our shoulder of, it's what you hear about with the old ECW, I believe, where it's these rebels getting together and being like, you know what? We were told no somewhere else. Here's our chance to be put on television and prove them wrong. Mm-hmm. So you had all that built up fire and frustration and energy to be set loose on a television show. And it was amazing. And I think that, the results speak for themselves. Whereas today, if my grandma starts wrestling today, by the end of the year, she'll be signed somewhere. And if not, she'll be so frustrated and so pissed that she'll either quit or she'll go on social media and talk about how it's unfair and blah, 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 blah. Whereas when Lucha Underground started, you had guys like myself and Ricochet and whatever, who were 10 years in, 12 years in, 14 years in, decades into something that is very difficult. And they were trying their hardest and they were overlooked. So to get to a point where guys have that level of frustration and that level of something to prove from now, you would need another 20-some years. All the current wrestling companies have to go under, and people would have to start wrestling now. And then 20 years from now, you could have that level of motivation behind a project. So it's like, that's what I think, as time goes on and as history looks back at that show, I think that's going to be what sort of emerges. Like, people know it was groundbreaking, people know it was unique, but I don't think they understand the level to which it was. And I think as, again, time passes, people are going to be like, oh my God, that was really something. I mean, and we had no boundaries. Like, it was like, hey, you're a great wrestler, go be a great wrestler. You're a great cameraman, be a great cameraman. You write good stories for this show. I would hear all the time, people were like, oh man, why can't the writers work for WWE? Or I wish these guys worked for WWE, blah, blah, blah. Every single one of them, there was 3 writers, all of them had come from WWE. So they had been there. The difference was, instead of being told, write this like this, they said, write something. Instead of telling us to wrestle like this, we were told, go wrestle. So the camera guys being told, shoot it like this, they were told, shoot the show. Everyone was trusted to be a professional and left to do what they do best. And then look what happened. We kind of reinvented wrestling. As opposed to, nobody was micromanaged and stuff. And I think that's kind of the legacy of the show to a large degree.
All right, so speaking of reinventing wrestling, you were part of, in my opinion, one of the greatest pay-per-views ever created and will always be talked about is All In. I think that was by far the hardest working pay-per-view that ever had to be created. And you had an amazing match with MJF. And like I said, that was the first match I ever saw you, and immediately you caught my eye, your gear, your enthusiasm, your wrestling style. Tell me how that call came through. Tell me how you felt. Tell me the backstage. Tell me that entire day, at All In.
I mean, it was awesome. It basically came about, there's a group called NGW in Tennessee that does great independent shows. They were able to book me against Cody Rhodes, very shortly after he left WWE. We had a series of matches, 2 matches there that were great. Some of my favorite matches that I've had in a career that now spans 20 years. So basically off the back of those matches with Cody, I got the call for All In. Because I'd run into him in Scotland or something like that as well after our matches, so we got a chance to talk about it and everything. And yeah, it was amazing. It was very similar to what I said about Lucha Underground, where you kind of quote unquote get a call, and then you're like, oh no, maybe, or not maybe as far as doing it. You're enthusiastic to do it, but you have no idea what to expect. Yeah, they booked a big arena, maybe 100 people show up, and it's embarrassing and whatever. I remember the moment that it was sold out because I was wrestling in France, and I was in Paris, and I was checking my phone, and it was something about it selling out, and I was like, wait, that show I'm doing in a couple months that I'm excited about is sold out? That was a moment I'll never forget, because I was so jet lagged anyway, and then I was at this apartment, and I couldn't sleep because I was just so excited, because I was like, I've spent the entirety of my career in independent professional wrestling. What a monumental celebratory moment of holy crap, this thing's sold out. Hulk Hogan's not on this, the Ultimate Warrior's not on this, Animal's not on this. I'm like, it's me. My grandma doesn't know who I am. My grandma doesn't care who Kenny Omega is. My grandma doesn't know Okada. I'm like, these are far from household names, certainly at that point, even more. I'm like, we're able to sell out something like that. It was so rewarding. And then the day was obviously amazing because we didn't know, is this can this lead to something else? Is this a one-off thing? Who knows, I knew, if nothing else, it was going to be an amazing day and a celebration of what we do and love. And it's I felt like everyone that was there, and there were so many people there, was motivated. It's everyone being there was more than attending a wrestling event. I feel like it was casting a vote. When you bought a ticket, when you sat there, when you wanted to go, it was with purpose. No one dragged a friend who's like, oh yeah, this was kind of boring, or everyone was invested. So to get a crowd like that again is I guess similar to Lucha Underground, this idea of how do you even do that again? It's almost can't replicate that. So you could feel that energy, and to be put in a position to kick the thing off, it was the first match. So, which is a big, the main event is important and the first match is important. When you're behind the scenes or when you're putting stuff together, that sets the tone for everything. If that kind of comes off the rails, if that doesn't do what needs to be done, the whole thing is sort of a bust. You can't overstate the importance of the first match, and they knew that. And that's why I was put in that position. So I took that, to heart and was like, I have to deliver for this. And I was really proud of that match. I did gymnastics for close to 11 years as my background. But I had that level of nerves, of anxiety, of excitement. It felt like nationals or a competitive high level elite gymnastics event or something like that. So I kind of put myself in that mindset and everything like that. But yeah, my adrenaline was, when it was over and I was so happy with how it had turned out. I mean, my adrenaline was out of this world. I have a buddy out of Canada. He does something called Shoot the Indies, like a really amazing photographer. And he had traveled down from Ontario to see the event. And when I got backstage, I was like beside myself. Like it was genuinely the most pumped I've ever been in my life. Like otherworldly levels of adrenaline. I remember just like, I was insane, sort of. I remember like pushing him and being like, we have to go like fight somebody. Because I just have so much energy, I can't even like. And he's a normal person, so he's like, what are you even talking about? And I'm like, dude, like we have to get in a fist fight right now. And he's like, I don't even know what you're talking about. And I'm like, dude, I either fight you for real right now, or we go in the parking lot and just beat the shit out of somebody. Because it was, even saying it now, I'm like, what? But it's like, I know it's an interesting anecdote. I know it's a good story, and I know it's true, so I might as well share it. Because it's like, but it was that level of, I've never even experienced that, where I wanted to just fight people. Like I couldn't. Man, it was so intense and so insane. My flight was 8 in the morning the next morning, so I had to be at the airport, around 7 a.m. And I didn't sleep the whole night because I didn't want that moment to end. I mean, that's what we do this for. We make so much less money than people think. I always joke about it. Like, Brad Pitt doesn't sit outside of the movie theater after you see him and try to sell his T-shirt for $20. And watch our eyes light up when we sell a $20 T-shirt. That says all you need to know. So it's if you're doing it for money, there's way better ways to make a lot more money and not fall on your head and live in constant pain. So if you think about the money in the wrestling business, like I wouldn't advise, and that was one of these moments where it's what we do it for was so tangible, so poignant, so concrete. I was like, this is what it's all about. And I didn't want that moment to end. I knew if I went to bed, I'd wake up, it'd be another day, another feeling, another. I was like, this is like the pinnacle of life. This is everything that I do this for. So I couldn't go to bed. I just wanted to be awake all night, and I was. Flew home at 8 in the morning the next morning. And then even that was a little story in and of itself. I got bumped up to first class, so I'm feeling cool. And I'm sitting there, and some guy walks by, and I'm flying back to Cleveland. And some kid walks by, and he's like, oh, M-Dog, you killed it last night. That was so amazing. Like, thank you for all you do. And I was like, oh, sick, I thought that was a cool moment. I'm like, this guy flew to Chicago for this wrestling event? Like, that was kind of mind-blowing. I'm like, wow, how cool, These people are so dedicated. And then a couple people behind him, maybe 10 people pass by, and I see a guy wearing like a Bullet Club shirt, Bullet Club hat, Bullet Club sweatpants. So I'm like, well, obviously this dude was at the show too. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I kind of have to acknowledge him because like he's going to know who I am. So it seems lame if I just pretend I didn't see him or something. Or I'm picturing like, I don't know, a horrible example, but if I'm like wearing Aerosmith stuff head to toe and I pass by Steven Tyler on the plane and he's just like, I'd be so, because I'd be like, this dude saw me and all this stuff. So to be like, I don't know, just cool or whatever, I see the kid and I was like, yeah, man. And I like go to fist bump him and he's like, no. And he throws me like a 2-sweet and I'm like, oh, fair enough. And I 2-sweet him or whatever. And then he's like, man, were you at the show? So it was so awesome. I was like, yeah, I was there, dude. He's like, oh, sick. I'm like, yeah, it was good, huh? And I was like, how funny. So within 4 minutes, I had both sides. I had one guy come on, like, you're the best, this is awesome. And then 2 seconds later, it was a guy that was like, were you there? And like, so, but that's wrestling in a nutshell, I mean, even yourself, like you said, like that's the first time you saw me before putting together that I was Son of Havok. And that was like my 19th or 20th year of wrestling across, I've been in 28 countries now, every single weekend, 40 states, like, so, but as independent wrestling, we make our fans just like one at a time. So it's like just this grind, this struggle, this whatever, but there's some beauty in that as well.
All right. So we got through something. We got through All In because, 2 memorable moments. Let's talk about where you are now. I'm watching you in NWA. That's where I've seen a lot of your work recently. Are you signed there? Because I know you posted a photo on social media saying that you were supposed to do a tour, but due to Corona, you had to postpone the flight and stuff like that. Are you signed with NWA?
I'm going to be doing more stuff for them.
Okay.
So once the world becomes the world again, if and when, I'll be doing more stuff with them. And actually, they got some really cool stuff planned. I wish I could. It's so lame to be like, oh, stay tuned for the cool stuff.
Tell us something. Tell us a small thing, if you can. Something small.
There's only basically one thing, and it's big, so I can't.
Okay.
But,
all right.
But I can say that not only will everyone essentially get excited for it, like I will myself. So they've got some really, assuming things stay, it's wrestling, so things can change every second. But the talks that we had right before the world ended were pretty cool. So I was excited about what was planned there. So yeah, I'll be doing more stuff for them for sure.
All right, well, I have to bring this up, even though I feel like you get this all over your DM box or anytime you see someone. You did work for All In, that was for Cody, the Young Bucks. Has AEW ever called you or sent you any information saying, hey, since you participated in All In, maybe you'd want to participate in Double or Nothing or stuff like that?
Yeah, it's tricky because it was basically, I was still under contract with Lucha Underground. And at some point, Lucha Underground had been bought by MGM. So that's like, a monolith in entertainment. So you don't want to, you got to dot your I's and cross your T's. Like, would they sue or pursue legal action? I'm sure not. But, AEW is obviously a giant corporation also. So you don't want these like behemoths, like whatever. So they just kind of had to make sure. It's been like an unfortunate timing sort of thing. Because again, there wasn't like, okay, Lucha Underground is officially done and everyone's out of their contract. It just sort of faded away, and fans and us alike were like, is that, is that a second? Oh, okay. And it's not like our contracts ended. So I don't even understand the legalese associated with that sort of things. But I was still under a Lucha Underground contract. So it was like, it became a weirdness there. But that's the beauty of pro wrestling too, is you can never rule like anything out. I think that's what makes it so exciting and cool, because I'm not gonna say it's unique to wrestling, but it's sort of in play more in this industry than it is other places. So I mean, never say never, and we'll see. I'm still wrestling, and now that I've had 3 months off, my body feels the best it's ever felt my entire career. So I've been doing a bunch of obviously working out and rehab stuff, so I kind of feel great. So if anything, this time's like extended my career, I suppose. So I'm ready to go if and when we start back. So we'll see where the cookie crumbles. I mean, for me, it's like I've just been so busy anyway. I was supposed to go to Costa Rica right before all this started, and that would have been the 29th country I've been to. So right now I kind of have my goals set of wrestling in 30 countries, because I'm not going to say I'm the only one who ever has, because I don't know that to be true, but I've never heard of anyone. So I'm likely the most well-traveled independent professional wrestler, certainly of the modern time, and arguably maybe ever. So that's kind of what I've always set my sights on, and that was my goal, and kind of exceeded that, I suppose. So I just want to, I love wrestling, and I just want to do wrestling. So that's
awesome.
As long as I do it and make a living on my own terms, and I wake up every single day at noon and kind of do whatever I want. So that's it's a win in my book.
All right, let's talk about some big projects, because I've seen so much of your work, and I bought so much of your new merch. You got your pins, shirts. I love the slogan "Wrestling is Forever," because it's true. No matter where you look at it, it'll always be there. So tell me how that came to be. How did you decide that's what you want your entire brand to follow?
Yeah, I had so many inspirations. It's like hard to even. There's just so much. I'll briefly try to touch on some of them. I said my background was competitive gymnastics, and it influences to this day who I am as a person, and certain things like discipline, and it just made me who I am as a man or whatever. And I remember my sister was also involved in high level competitive gymnastics, and it's just a very all encompassing, insane sport, arguably the hardest in the world. And I remember her at some point, when we were touching on our gymnastics backgrounds and how it's shaped who we are, and daily, you can there's daily examples of things we think or things that we do that can trace back to gymnastics. And she's like, yeah, that's because gymnastics is forever. And it floored me. Like, I thought it was the coolest thing I'd ever heard in my life. Like, I was like, literally like, oh, I'm going to fall over. Because I was like, whoa, that's so, like, it was so awesome. I was like, yeah, I was there, dude. He's like, oh, sick. I'm like, yeah, it was good, huh? And I was like, how funny. So within 4 minutes, I had both sides. I had one guy come on, like, you're the best, this is awesome. And then 2 seconds later, it was a guy that was like, were you there? And like, so, but that's wrestling in a nutshell, I mean, even yourself, like you said, like that's the first time you saw me before putting together that I was Son of Havok. And that was like my 19th or 20th year of wrestling across, I've been in 28 countries now, every single weekend, 40 states. Like, so, but as independent wrestling, we make our fans just like one at a time. So it's like just this grind, this struggle, this whatever, but there's some beauty in that as well.
All right. So we got through Lucha Underground, we got through All In because, 2 memorable moments. Let's talk about where you are now. I'm watching you in NWA. That's where I've seen a lot of your work recently. Are you signed there? Because I know you posted a photo on social media saying that you were supposed to do a tour, but due to Corona, you had to postpone the flight and stuff like that. Are you signed with NWA?
I'm going to be doing more stuff for them.
Okay.
So once the world becomes the world again, if and when, I'll be doing more stuff with them. And actually, they got some really cool stuff planned. I wish I could. It's so lame to be like, oh, stay tuned for the cool stuff.
Tell us something. Tell us a small thing, if you can. Something small.
There's only basically one thing, and it's big, so I can't.
Okay.
but,
all right.
but I can say that not only will everyone essentially get excited for it, like I will myself. So they've got some really, assuming things stay, it's wrestling, so things can change every second. But the talks that we had right before the world ended were pretty cool. So I was excited about what was planned there. So yeah, I'll be doing more stuff for them for sure.
All right, well, I have to bring this up, even though I feel like you get this all over your DM box or anytime you see someone. You did work for All In, that was for Cody, the Young Bucks. Has AEW ever called you or sent you any information saying, hey, since you participated in All In, maybe you'd want to participate in Double or Nothing or stuff like that?
Yeah, it's tricky because it was basically, I was still under contract with Lucha Underground. And at some point, Lucha Underground had been bought by MGM. So that's like, a monolith in entertainment. So you don't want to, you got to dot your I's and cross your T's. Like, would they sue or pursue legal action? I'm sure not. But, AEW is obviously a giant corporation also. So you don't want these like behemoths, like whatever. So they just kind of had to make sure it's been like an unfortunate timing sort of thing. Because again, there wasn't like, okay, Lucha Underground is officially done and everyone's on their contract. It just sort of faded away, and fans and us alike were like, is that, is that a second? Oh, okay. And it's not like our contracts ended. So I don't even understand the legalese associated with that sort of things. But I was still under a Lucha Underground contract. So it was like, it became a weirdness there. But that's the beauty of pro wrestling too, is you can never rule like anything out. I think that's what makes it so exciting and cool, because I'm not gonna say it's unique to wrestling, but it's sort of in play more in this industry than it is other places. So I mean, never say never, and we'll see. I'm still wrestling, and now that I've had 3 months off, my body feels the best it's ever felt my entire career. So I've been doing a bunch of obviously working out and rehab stuff, so I kind of feel great. So if anything, this time's like extended my career, I suppose. So, I'm ready to go if and when we start back. So we'll see where the cookie crumbles. I mean, for me, it's like I've just been so busy anyway. I was supposed to go to Costa Rica where it probably started, and that would have been the 29th country I've been to. So right now I kind of have my goals set of wrestling in 30 countries, because I'm not going to say I'm the only one who ever has, because I don't know if that to be true, but I've never heard of anyone. So I'm likely the most well-traveled independent professional wrestler, certainly of the modern time, and arguably maybe ever. So that's kind of what I've always set my sights on, and that was my goal, and kind of exceeded that, I suppose. So I just want to, I love wrestling, and I just want to do wrestling. So that's
awesome.
As long as I do it and make a living on my own terms, and then you know, like I wake up every single day at noon and kind of do whatever I want. So that's a win in my book.
All right, let's talk about some big projects because I've seen so much of your work and I bought so much of your new merch. I got your pins, shirts. I love the slogan "Wrestling is Forever" because it's true. No matter what way you look at it, it'll always be there. So tell me how that came to be. How did you decide that's what you want your entire brand to follow?
Yeah, I had so many inspirations. It's like hard to even. There's just so much. I'll like briefly try to touch on like some of them. I said my background was competitive gymnastics, and it influences to this day like who I am as a person, and certain things like discipline, and it just made me who I am as a man or whatever. And I remember my sister was also involved in high level competitive gymnastics, and it's just a very all encompassing, like insane sport, arguably the hardest in the world. And I remember her at some point. When we were touching on our gymnastics backgrounds and how it's shaped who we are, and daily, like you can there's daily examples of things we think or things that we do that can trace back to gymnastics. And she's like, yeah, that's because gymnastics is forever. And it floored me. Like I thought it was the coolest thing I'd ever heard in my life. Like I was like literally like, oh, I'm gonna fall over because I was like, wow, that's so like you're so right, and that's so cool. I was like, what a statement! Like it was so powerful, and I realized. I transitioned from gymnastics to pro wrestling. There was even some overlap. So beginning my wrestling career, I was still competing in gymnastics. So the parallel with those two activities is that there's no off season in either one. So I started gymnastics when I was 10. So for the past 30 years, I've just been trashing my body like constantly and like just devoted to these insane activities, insane and painful activities. And I realized, man, there's parallels between gymnastics and wrestling, and the passion and the insanity. And I was inspired by things like, it seems like just a few short years ago, like Tyler Black sleeping on the floor here, because we're going from town to town and whatever. He's got a so yeah, like it's like 4, 5, 6 years ago, maybe 7, 8, 9, but I don't know, the years all blend together, but it's like Seth Rollins was on the floor here, like spending the night, because he had a dream, because he was chasing something. And was he making money at that point? No. Like, so you're driving 6 hours, 7 hours, not sleeping, whatever, hoping that like this against impossible odds, that you're one of the people that slips through the cracks and makes a difference. And you just see that, and you see this sacrifice. Like, I don't care what people's like dreams are, really. I don't care about lip service, because I could right now be like, I'm dreaming about being an astronaut. Well, who cares? What have you done toward that? So I'm inspired and motivated by people like him that didn't just talk about it. He didn't just want to be a wrestler. He's sleeping on a floor. I mean, that's a very tangible sacrifice he was making, and it paid off. And it's paid off for so many of my friends. So that's inspiring, because it's not like, oh, one guy won the lottery. Like, whoa. When it becomes 30, 40 of your close friends that won the lottery, it's not winning the lottery anymore. It's like, there's a system. There's something to this. Like, that passion and that sacrifice is so often rewarded. So I wanted to touch on that because I see it on both sides of the ropes. The guys in the ring are obviously passionate because we're doing something that's taking away quality years of our life. And for what? But the fans, too. I mean, like, coming home from All In, and guys are flying to Chicago and buying flights to see shows, and people supporting the industry in whatever way they can, and going to shows and cheering and booing, and these are like visceral reactions that we all sort of share. So again, on both sides of the ropes, you see this just like passion. So I was motivated by that, and then I guess the real turning point is, I think it was 2000. God, my date's all messed up now. 2017 or something. Like the first match of the year that year, I broke my leg. And I've been tossing around these ideas of like, man, wrestling is forever, and what is that? And what does that mean? And where do we go with that? And all of a sudden my leg's broke, and I'm going to be home for 3, 4, 5 months. And as an independent professional wrestler, the entirety of my income comes from wrestling. So all of a sudden, overnight, you don't have any money. And it's like, like, what am I going to do? So it gave me that final boost of motivation and the time, because all of a sudden I had nothing to do. So I was out of excuses as far as like, I'll work on that when I can. because I didn't know how to make a website. I didn't know how to start an email list. I didn't know how to, not that I'm personally doing the screen printing, but I didn't know like where to go for the screen printing and where to go for this and where to, there was like just this laundry list of things I had to do, like get a PO box. And so I kind of, had to sit down with pen and paper and be like, I guess step one is a PO box, I guess. I don't know. Step two is like getting a domain name. Like, what am I doing? So just figuring all of that out myself, which is, I'm a punk, so the DIY punk rock ethos of all of that is what's always, it's do it yourself. So I was like, because there's so many times where I'm like, well, I don't understand, so I'll stop, or I don't get it, so I'm done. But I was like, no, those are there are good excuses, but they're still excuses. They still don't hold water. I was like, I gotta figure it out. So that's kind of what gave me that chance to start it, because I love that, like, whatever wrestling is forever means to me, it means something completely different to you. And it means something different than someone listening to this. And it means something different to his friend and our friends and your friends and my dad and whatever. It means something different, and they're all valid, and there's so many things that people have shared with me that I didn't even think of when I started it. Like, people are like, oh, I used to watch wrestling with my father, and my father's passed away. So it means that to them. And I'm like, holy, like, that's deep, that's amazing. And that wasn't part of it. But people are drawing their own connections, which I love. Because I'm like, that's sick, Because it's not like punch, kick, the brand. Like, it's not some lame, meaningless, like, garbage. It's deep and layered, and that's what I enjoy about it. So it's giving me another creative outlet, too. I mean, I've wrestled for, at that point, 18 years or something. So you're always getting better, and you always have more to learn. But I was like, I get how the wrestling business works. So some of the shine is gone. It's not as exciting. It's like, yeah, the machine's going, and it's going well, and I enjoy it. But so this was another avenue we're all artists. So this was another avenue for that, another creative outlet of like, well, I've got some ideas for designs, and I'd like to put those on certain shirts, and I have an idea of how I'd like to see things presented and the thoughts that I'd like to get out there. And so that's been exciting. And then once you started it, the ball kind of rolls itself, because then people are like, why don't you do hoodies? I'd love a hoodie. Or why don't you do this with it? Or why don't you do that with that? And I still have a ton of more ideas of things that, that's been a good thing, I guess, about this quarantine and everything. I've explored some other ideas where, because what is it? Is it a promotion? Maybe. Is it a blog? Maybe. Is it a podcast? Could be. Like, it's, I love, like, the ambiguity of it too. So there's a lot of places that, and it'll always be my connection to this industry. I've done it for the entirety of my adult life. At some point I'll be done, but my contributions through Wrestling is Forever can, I have no pun intended, last forever. So even when I'm 40 years old, 50 years old, like 2,000 years old, and out of wrestling, I can still have this connection to something that was my entire life for decades.
Yeah, that's perfect. Before we get to the next project, because it's something very interesting that a lot of wrestlers don't do, I want to ask you about merch. I'm a huge collector when it comes to figures and plushes. I want to know if you've ever thought about having your own, figure in your website, or your own plush, keychains, stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm open to any ideas. I've had people like send me kind of custom one-off figures, and some of the talent that people have there is crazy. I got this one at WrestleCade, like October or November of last year. I think it's on my Instagram. But this guy made these like almost like 12-inch like resin model things that, man, they were so cool. And he made a Macross one and a Son of Havok one, and the detail and everything. And that's a cool part of wrestling too, is because like, I guess my talent is I don't know, falling on my head. And other people's talent is like just sculpting or painting or coming. I couldn't do that. So everyone sort of contributing in their own ways is kind of nice, and playing to their strengths. I'd certainly be open to something like that. I mean, I'm open to anything. That's what I just said too. Like, sort of whatever ideas people have, I like to field. Like I've had people like, we want, I don't know what it is. Like, I just released zip hoodies. And that was my most requested item. All the time, people were like, "Oh, zip hoodies," and I get it. I mean, it's like the coolest article of clothing there is. The most like versatile thing. So many people were kind of telling me about it, and then I finally released it. So yeah, I mean, I'm always up for cool things, and I try to do different stuff. I mean, not everybody has even something simple. Not everybody has like hats or shorts, or I did joggers and stuff like that. Like, I'm trying to do stuff that. And the reason people don't is because, A, there's a risk involved, and then B, they're just a lot more expensive.
Yeah.
So I've taken a lot of those risks, and they've been more or less successful to this point, but I'm in a position where I can, which is nice. So it's like, okay, well, like, what's a crazy, like, I'll share it with you. I have some like dream of like doing like jackets or something someday, because I think that'd be like so sick, and like everyone just wearing these like let's go to the wrestling show, wear these like sick jackets. But I mean, that's going to be like so expensive and blah blah blah.
Have you ever seen the nerds clothing jackets? It's like, have you ever seen? Yeah, it's like stuff like that. Like the nerds clothing jackets came out somewhat maybe 2-3 years ago, and they're like the hottest item. You know, they're exclusive, and you know those jackets are always the most interesting thing to have. You know.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm certainly open to whatever suggestions and anything people have, and new cool stuff. Yeah, for sure. I mean, especially now, it's like I'm only making money off WrestlingIsForever.com, so I've been putting a lot of time and energy there, and I just, well, here can be your breaking exclusive. I just had flags made, and they're on the website. I haven't made an announcement on my Instagram or anything yet that they're out, so I'm looking to like do that as like my first email type thing. But it feels weird to email people about merch right now, so I'm holding off on that because more important things going on. But yeah, so I get just like 3x5 like polyester flags. They're pretty sick, and just put those on the site. So I can try to do different stuff and stuff like that. So.
All right, fair enough. So let's get to the other project. It released, I believe, early during the pandemic, like right when the pandemic actually hit. Everyone's at home. It actually got released. It's your movie. You were starting the movie. Tell us about how that came to be, because not a lot of wrestlers have their own movie, you know, or get other wrestlers to be in their movie.
Sure. I mean, it follows the theme of this whole interview to some degree. I woke up that morning and that was an email in my inbox, you know? So it's like, but for every one of these projects, I mean, we're talking about All In, we're talking about Lucha Underground, now we're talking about the movie. For every one of these projects that came to fruition and was cool and was real, imagine how many things I get that are just complete BS, you know? So it's like, these are one in a million type of things. So it was an email about doing a movie. I'm not an actor. I don't pretend to be. I never had any aspirations to be. And to be honest, the way it was worded, I thought it was going to be like doing background work, like doing extra work. So I did that, funny enough, they shot the first Avengers in Cleveland. So I did background stuff for that. Because I'm like, oh yeah, getting paid during the week, awesome. Went to some minor casting thing and got accepted, and you can see me in like one of the opening scenes where like Loki subjugates the people in this German square, and an old man gets up to speak against him, and like I'm right there. I don't have a beard at the time, but it's pretty hilarious because I was getting texts from my friends. They're like, dude, are you straight up in the Avengers? Like, what's going on? So I thought it was something like that where, in my mind, wrestling shows are on the weekends. I only make money on the weekends. Like, these guys are going to pay me to stand around during the week? Sick. You know, so I wrote them back and was like, sure, here's what I charge. Never expecting to hear back from them. Fast forward a couple weeks, I've obviously forgotten about it completely. They wrote me back and they're like, we've had a meeting with our producers, and I'm like, what? I don't know what this is about. What's a producer? Again, we've had all these meetings with our producers and everything, and we greenlit the project, and we're going to move ahead with it, and we'd like to have you as the lead, and whatever. And I'm like, oh, boy, okay, so what? And I had this moment of, like, what do I do? Because, like, do they know? Like, I'm not, like...
I'm a wrestler.
Like, I just wrestle. I'm not, like, I don't want to ruin your project. And they're talking about budgets and all this. I'm like, I'm not here to ruin somebody's, like, passion project. So it put me in this weird spot because I went from thinking I was going to do background stuff, stand somewhere for a couple hours during the week, sure, to like, I'm going to have to be like, what do you mean? So it was really intimidating, and part of me wanted to say no. But then the other part of me is like, I think that's life, right? Like, you always read about how you kind of get out of your comfort zone and grow and all this stuff. And I was like, here's like a real concrete time where there's a fork in the road where I can either be wuss and be like, it's not what I do, I don't want to do it, or I can be like, well, what's this like? If nothing else, it'll be a funny story. And I sort of told myself, I'm going to find out if I can do it or not on someone else's dime. Like, I don't lose. Like, they're going to pay me and I'm going to try my best. So if I'm horrible, I'm horrible. And then I'll know, hey, turns out I'm horrible. And if the opportunity ever comes again, I'll be like, maybe no, I'm bad at that. Because I have no idea. So I was like, why not do this just for the story? And when it's all said and done, I mean, just the stuff that we've talked about in this hour, where it's like, wrestled in a stadium for 72,000 people, wrestled in a prison, like did a movie, like that's life, right? Just this collection of crazy moments. So that's what I enjoy. So I was like, yeah. And I knew there'd be a director and all that kind of stuff there. So I assumed, I remember the first day, because obviously you can take multiple takes. It's not like wrestling. It's actually fake instead of wrestling being fake. We get told we're fake, even though I don't know what's fake about it. But movies are actually fake. So there's obviously multiple takes. So I figured if it's horrible and we do the first take of something and they're like, ooh, do it differently or do it like this or do it like, I'm like, we're going to keep working on it until it's workable. And I was really like heightened to that sense because I was looking for things like that. Like I expected them to be like, yeah, well, maybe like that, but more like this. But they were kind of like, okay, great, let's move on. And I was like, okay, I mean, it's your guys' money, it's your guys' project. So I'm like, am I doing it? So then I got more and more comfortable. And one of my co-stars or one of the other people in the movie was this 10-year-old kid. And I don't have kids, so I have no sense of like what a 10-year-old kid is. I don't know if that's like a baby or if that votes or like, I don't know what 10 years old means nothing to me. And I meet this kid and I'm expecting it to be like a baby or something because I'm an idiot. And I remember the first day, he's like, oh, hey man. And even that, I'm like, oh, what's up? And he's like, do you know your lines? And I'm like, no, 10-year-old kid, I don't. But I was like, what? I'm like, do you? Like, and it was funny because there's a learning curve with everything. So I didn't even know I'd been given these lines, but I thought it was like wrestling promos where you just maybe have bullet points or, it's like there's so much improv in wrestling. Whereas movies, like it's kind of, it's kind of real. Like where you have to know, I didn't know you had to know your lines. I mean, that's how dumb I am. So I mean, I'd been given pages of stuff, but I hadn't learned it because I was like, yeah, whatever. And then I show up, and here's a 10-year-old putting me in my place and being like, do you know your lines? And I was like, no. I'm like, do I have to? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, uh-oh. So, moments where I had to, I mean, thank God for wrestling where I can, fake it to a large extent or things like that. So it was a really cool experience. And we ended up doing it, I don't even know, 2 or 3 years ago at this point. So it's kind of, the timing was funny that it just sort of, that there was a release in Cleveland and it was at some theaters. But for it to be available, I mean, yeah, like on Amazon and things like that right now, iTunes. But it came out during the pandemic, which was kind of helpful because everyone's sitting around. And once we got through Tiger King, like there's nothing else to watch. So steer some people in the direction of Powerbomb, which I'm proud of it. Yeah. I'm not going to sit here and be like I'm the greatest actor of all time, but every review I've ever seen, like I expected people to just like crap on me. And it's. I don't pretend to be an actor, so if everyone in the world was like, you're horrible, I'd be like, yeah, I could be. I don't know. Like, I never said I was good. So I've been really happy with all the feedback. I think the bar is set so low for wrestlers acting that most of the feedback that I've seen has been like, they do surprisingly well. I think because they expected us all just to be terrible. So they're like, you wouldn't expect it, but the wrestlers actually did well. So, the majority or all the feedback I've actually seen personally has been positive, which is, I'd love to do something like that again. It was totally new experience, but a lot of fun and different and rewarding.
No, yeah, I saw it was a great movie, and I thought you did amazing. And the backstage of it all, now we know that you just didn't know your lines, and but look at that, you made it good. That means that at the end of the day, there could be more for you in that concept. Let's get to a really big portion. We're down to our final questions. I don't want to hold you off for too long, but we're down to the part where like I care so much about this because this is what shows a wrestler and how much they care. It's their gear, and I believe your gear is probably one of the most interesting gear because the design, the patterns, plus as you got the colors, you got the pink and black, the green and gray. You have all these different kinds of gears. How did you decide to create your gear like that?
Yeah, I was slow to that game, if you will. I cared less about that. Like when I got into wrestling, it was like watching Tajiri versus Super Crazy just like have these crazy athletic contests. And that's what spoke to me, I guess, as a gymnast. So I didn't care what people were wearing, and I didn't care about entrances. I'm like, just appear in the ring and just wow me with the moves is what I want to see. And that was always kind of my focus. And then I remember years and years ago, and I won't name names, But I went to a show with an ex-girlfriend, and she was like, "Oh, so-and-so is so awesome." And it was a guy that isn't awesome. And I was like, "What?" And I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "That guy's actually like, he's horrible." She's like, "No, he's like one of my favorites. He's great." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" But we're looking at it from totally different things, and she's like, "Oh, he looks so cool. His outfit's so cool." And I'm like, "Who cares? Like, he's horrible at pro wrestling. Like, what do you mean his outfit is cool? Like, that doesn't. I mean, but I'm coming at it from this like highly competitive gymnastics aspect where I'm like, I don't care what the dude's outfit looks like. Like, did he do a perfect routine or not, or whatever? It's like, but that was like, as silly as it is, it was like this eye-opening moment where I was like, wait a minute, that's an outsider's perspective. That's your layman, average person, and they're like, oh, outfit, cool. And I was like, oh my God, I'm an idiot. Because I always had crappy gear. Because I didn't care. Like, I'm like, that doesn't matter. And I was always like, I like being underestimated. Because then you can wow people. Like, expectations are hard to fulfill. So people are like, you're the best guy ever, do it. How are you going to do that? But if they're like, I don't know. And then you wow them, it's like, whoa. So I almost thought it was a tactic to have less than spectacular gear and then do moves they've never seen before. And they're like, well, I didn't expect it. But I realized the flaw in that I was like, wait, why not come through the curtain, have them be like, whoa, like, I've never really seen anything like that. That looks awesome. He looks cool. Cool. And also spectacular. And I've also never seen them before. So I was like, it makes it more of this total package. And that was completely lost on me. So I had to make like a conscious effort to right that wrong. I mean, every 6 months, every year, you sort of revisit your own game and you're like, okay, what am I bad at? Like, is my body where it needs to be? Do I look like a pro wrestler? Can I speak like a pro wrestler? Am I presenting myself like a pro wrestler? Is my outfit right? And it's a constant work in progress. And again, every 6 months, every year at the latest, you have to go back and be like, what is the weakest part of my game at this point, and how can I improve that? So when I did that, like, self-inventory, I was like, my gear sucks, or it could be better. So I was like, that's what I need to. And I think that's a good problem, because a lot of times guys are not good wrestlers, or their bodies are horrible, or, there's so many other things that are way harder to change. I was like, man, I'm pretty lucky that I'm at a place right now where I feel like the weakest part of my game is my pants. Like, I can change that easily. So I had to do it though. But it's realizing that it's like this whole package sort of element that was lost on me for years. So I definitely like messed up in a lot of ways. So now I was, again, I want my gear at this point to like match my style, and I want my style to be somewhat unmatched. So my gear needs to fall in place. So I just wanted to do different stuff, and like my pink and black tights, like even the design itself is like different on each leg, which I thought was kind of cool and different, and like so that way every angle you're at, and the moves I'm doing, and I'm flying around and all this, I thought it's going to be caught at so many different angles, so every picture will kind of look different, and everything will be just a little. So it was a very like thought out process to get where I'm at now, because you should stick out with your gear. I mean, that's a huge lesson for newer guys or whatever. And you're always a work in progress. So I'm still working on that and exploring that myself.
All right. Awesome. Final question. Name me a few wrestlers that inspired you to be a wrestler or to have the gimmick that you do. Sorry about that.
Just ECW in general.
Just
like
ECW?
My buddy was like, hey, come over and watch this wrestling show. And I was like, I don't know. He's like, it's called ECW. And I'm like, that doesn't mean anything to me. And eventually he talked me into it. We were just two straight edge punks in Ohio. So I wanted to go to his house just to hang out with him. I didn't want to watch this wrestling stuff. But he introduced me to ECW. And every single person there, like, I thought Rob Van Dam was the coolest thing I'd ever seen in my life because he was like kind of doing gymnastics. Mm-hmm. I thought New Jack was the coolest thing in my life because he's jumping off balconies. I thought Steve Corino was the coolest dude I ever saw in my life because he's bleeding out of his head all the time. I thought Shane Douglas was the coolest dude I've ever seen in my life because he was swearing. I thought, like every single dude was just like, it was so different than anything I'd ever seen. And it was extreme in a lot of its elements. Like some guys were so violent like I'd never seen. People were swearing like I'd never seen. People were naked like I'd never seen. People were it was chaos. It was punk rock, just in a different format. Like, it wasn't a band. It was like punk's not just a sound. It goes a lot farther. And ECW was punk. So everyone that was involved there, I loved every single dude. Like, I don't know if there was anyone I didn't like. Like, every person I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And there's almost a different time too, where I think there's too much like cynicism in the world now, where even if ECW came back the exact same, or even an updated version of it, 50% of people would be like, oh, no, his work great, or he doesn't look like a wrestler, or he sucks at this, or there would be like some cynicism instead of being like sick. Like, I like wrestling. Here's a new wrestling thing. I can't wait. Like, I just feel like I was like, I don't know, a better fan or something. Because like, I just love. There was like a musketeer dude in ECW. Like, I don't even remember his name. He was like a crappy musketeer. Maybe the worst gimmick of all time. I loved it. You know, I loved every dude that came out. I'm like, oh, who's this? Paul Mahoney? He's a fat dude. He rules. Like, he's gonna fall from thumbtacks. I love it. Like, I just loved all. I mean, you can't understand the importance of ECW to me for an element of wrestling fandom and wanting to pursue it. Like, when I saw RVD versus Jerry Lynn and the crazy stuff they were doing, it just forever defined hardcore wrestling to me. I mean, you don't need tables or chairs to be hardcore wrestling. You can have it, sure. I have nothing against it. But just like the way that they were just doing like pure wrestling, but it's still so hardcore, you know? I was just like, man, this is like the spirit of that just spoke to me. And I'm like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. So that's the first time I think I got an idea of like, oh, I want to do this or whatever. I don't think I knew what that meant. And I don't think, if you'd have told me then, like driving to Heatwave 98 in Dayton, Ohio, like you'll be doing this in 24 years still from that point, like I would have never ever believed it. But yeah, I definitely caught the spirit of ECW, and then I just couldn't shake it.
All right, that was great. All right, tell people where they can find you on social media or support you in any other platforms.
Yeah, sure. My Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook are all at mdougmattcross. One word, 2 G's, 2 T's, 2 S's. And if you haven't already, please check out WrestlingServer.com. So I'm trying to make that my connection to business, and it's this thing that, you know, we all love, obviously. So that's my outlet for that, and the outlet for all of our love for this same thing. I think that we are the misunderstood, and we all share this common bond of this weird thing. So. And Wrestling's Forever is sort of the rallying cry for that.
All right. Thank you. Thank you guys for watching. This has been the All Real Wrestling Podcast. And we'll see you guys next time. Please like that smash button. Please support us in any way. Thank you so much. And always be awesome. Wow, what an awesome interview. Man, I love giving you guys these behind the scenes of a wrestler's mind. What was his largest match? What was the shortest match? What was the strangest place he ever worked in? I'm happy that you guys get to get all this new knowledge and information while you're all at home, just like me. We're all just making this work. And I want to thank you all for supporting me through it all. Please, if you haven't yet, like, comment, subscribe, share with all your friends. It helps deeply. I'll even take fan art. It's amazing to spread the word everywhere on social media. I'm on social media. Look at the information below. You will find all my social media accounts, even my personal ones. Please keep following. Build this up to being something amazing. Help me achieve my dream. Help me give you guys more. Give you guys bigger. Give you guys talent that you couldn't even think I could get on this show. Thank you, everyone. I will see you guys next time. Have a good one.